IRSC's Startup Talk is on WPSL from the Treasure Coast Lexus Studios. Treasure Coast Lexus, US 1 south of Midway Road. You're listening to WSTU Stewart.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
Very pleasant good evening. Time for Startup Talk from Indian River State College as we approach our fourth season on the air with Mr. Tom Kindred.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And welcome to another segment and installment of Startup Talk, the show designed to assist and help Treasure and Research Coast residents who want to start, grow, or accelerate their business. And as I always say, what a great place it is to own and operate a business along the beautiful Research and Treasure Coast. We will spend time during our hour together this evening to highlight and create awareness regarding the very powerful and robust business assistance and support programs that exist right here in our community at our very own Indian River State College. I am Tom Kindred, and I serve the community and the college as the Regional Director for the Small Business Development Center here at IRSC. Underwriters for this segment of Startup Talk are the Florida SBDC at IRSC and our good friends at Express Printing of Port St. Lucie. So how are you this evening, Greg?
Doing well.
4 years.
We're
like only yesterday.
That mark. Yeah, and we got to rattle our dear president's cage a little bit. It's been 2 years since he's been on the show.
It's about time to have Dr. Massey back.
We got to get Dr. Massey
listen,
back.
he's got a lot probably to talk about. He's in his running for he's in the top 10 again in Aspen this year, and so a lot going on at Indian River State College, that's for sure.
Ran into Bill Solomon at Publix.
Yes, our culinary director.
Bill said that the Aspen people were fed quite nicely last week.
I'm sure they were. Had the opportunity to partake in a little bit of our culinary students' work, and it's good stuff. So
you bet, good stuff. Yeah.
We've got some great guests this evening. Great show this evening. I want to get started here pretty quickly. We got a lot to talk about. We have two great guests this evening. First, I want to introduce Dr. James Sullivan, an internationally renowned researcher and leading oceanographer. Dr. Sullivan is the executive director of Florida Atlantic University's Harbor Branch Oceanographic Institute right here in St. Lucie County in Fort Pierce. We are going to talk to Dr. Sullivan about the blue-green algae situation in our lagoon. So welcome to the show, Dr. Sullivan.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. But before we get into our lagoon discussion, I also want to introduce Mr. John Crowe from the Indian River State College Foundation. John serves as the Alumni Development Coordinator. Welcome to the show, John.
Thanks. Always a pleasure.
Real quickly, before we get started with John and talk a little bit about the foundation and the Alumni Association, I do want to remind everyone that next Thursday, we've got our 2018 Florida SBDC Women in Business Summit taking place down at the Schreiber Center on the Pruitt campus. Want to remind everyone, if you haven't registered, do so. It is always a good event. It'll take place, again, Thursday from about 7:30 till 2:30 in the afternoon. Got all kinds of presentations going on, cybersecurity, marketing, and search engine optimization, financing opportunities. So, again, a great event. That's next Thursday, I believe the 18th. At the Schreiber Center. So if you need more information on the Women in Business Summit, you can always go to that irscbiz.com site, hit that event schedule, and look for the events happening in October. So with that...
So are we going to sneak in? Or?
Oh, well, we always sneak in, especially for lunch.
Free lunch? Yeah, we're there.
Well, I don't know. Now, Patrice may have something to say about free lunch, but yes, we will be there. It is our intention to do our show next week from the Women in Business Summit. So
sounds great.
So Greg and I will be there broadcasting from the summit. So with that, I invited John from the Indian River State College Foundation office to swing by tonight just to talk to us. He's got a couple of great things coming up, so I wanted to talk about those. But first, John, just a quick background on yourself, pathway to your current position as the alumni development coordinator with the foundation office.
Yeah, sure. I'm a Florida guy from the Panhandle. We like to call it L.A., Lower Alabama. Going through there, just working in the colleges ever since I got out of grad school. Went to Georgia for a little bit, then made our way down to South Florida, which is like the other half of Florida, and came on the foundation working with alumni and kind of building the program and seeing it grow, which has been a great opportunity so far.
Well, you kind of have you've set the bar for the alumni program. You are the first alumni director, are you not, for the college?
It's true, full time.
Yeah, nice. Primary mission and goal of the IRSC Foundation and the Alumni Relations Department. What are you guys all about?
I mean, really, we get the opportunity to support the institution. So we're looking to help them get those students to succeed in all their programs, whether it's certification, a bachelor's program, associate's program, some kind of career development. And we do that really through the fundraising efforts, through scholarships, helping them with some facilities. Whatever we can do to go above and beyond and help the students reach their goals is kind of what we're trying to do.
Nice. And alumni, you've kind of, again, created this whole alumni department within the foundation. What are you guys doing with the Alumni Relations Department?
Sure. I kind of looked out coming on board. There was a lot of part-time help building it up, so I can't say I started from scratch, but a great foundation, really reaching out to our alumni, and I want to hear their story. What was your experience like while you were in college? What great things are you doing now? Being here, I was full-time for about 2 years. Hearing the stories that these alumni have gone through, the accomplishments, we're years ago, a community college, a junior college, we have lawyers, judges, people that have, experienced our campus and are making difference like worldwide. Right. I talked to a gentleman last week. He did a global study abroad, probably 10 years ago. He works in Prague. Right. He came from IRSC. That's
another new site for the show.
Yeah, you guys can go global.
That's right. We can go global here.
We're global
live.
right now.
That's right.
On Alexa and Google Home.
Greg always tells us we're global.
Yeah.
Every week he reminds us we're global. Why is it important that a student stay in touch after graduation?
Sure. Really, it gives them an opportunity to see what new things are in their industry, what great things are coming out. I found a lot of the students stay in touch with their professors, which is an awesome relationship they have. They graduate, they do great things. They come and say, hey, professor, I'm doing this now. Oh, wow, have you heard about these great things? They get to share their story, but also we can hopefully get students that are in the program to touch base with them and really continue that growth, continue that moment where they're developing the next realm of people in their career.
Right. Now, I know you guys do all kinds of events throughout the year as an alumni group, but I think you've got a brand new event that you guys are kind of launching this year. Talk a little bit about your event coming up. You've got a big 5K run.
Yep, it's our inaugural Pioneer 5K in November. So we have some spring events. We thought we'd bring something to the fall. And what not better than a 5K right after Halloween candy and before Thanksgiving. So I'm starting you off at a deficit for Thanksgiving. So you can eat a little bit of turkey.
Right.
But so it's going to be over at our St. Lucie West Pruitt campus. It's going to be our first time. When we kind of started it, none of us are big 5Kers. So we're like, how can we do an awesome event? So we really talked to some of the experts in our area. We invested with MCM Timing Mike. He's a professional. Mike Melton.
Yeah, he's doing our sugar plum run.
Okay, and he knows how to do them. And so I was like, Mike, can you come on board? So we're working with him to make sure it's an accurate and well-done 5K. And really want to pull at the stops for a good experience for everyone that shows up. The hopes are that we build some relationships. All the money that comes in from registration, the proceeds go to scholarships. So we're running, we're having a good time, and we're changing lives, which is, I think, a great reason to have a run.
Well, you mentioned, go ahead, Greg.
Mike just got back from Slovenia. He was working timing for their Olympic athletes.
Wow.
Over there.
And he didn't pick any of us up.
Yeah, well, should have taken some IRSC stuff and passed it around.
Now you touched on the subject of scholarships and the money from the 5K is for scholarships. I mean, you guys really do. The foundation does a great job of supporting the students. And that is a big part of what you do, is it not?
Oh, it's great. We had the honor and privilege, I believe, of providing over $3 million in scholarship funds last year.
Wow.
And that's the cool part is it's for all programs. It's people that are in certificate programs, people that are going through public safety training programs, associate degrees, bachelor degrees. So we hope to help these students hit their goal. What do they want to be? I mean, when you walk on our campus, you just see potential everywhere. The student that's going there to become a nurse, the student that's going there for criminal justice training, the student that's going there for a certificate. They're trying to improve their situation and their family, and those stories are just amazing to hear.
All right. Well, it is great work that you guys, and I also know I think pretty well. You have an incredible boss, do you not?
She's pretty awesome. She deals with me every day. So I've been on probation, I think, for about 300 days now, but she keeps me on. So.
Yeah, well, that's nice. But Ann Decker has really done a great job with the foundation. Just plays a big role in the community every day, and I can't think of anybody who better serves the foundation than Ann does, and knows the community, been in our community for a long time, very engaged, and loves giving scholarships out to students.
Oh, she lives it. I mean, it's all the meetings she goes to, the community people she meets with. It's great, and it's a great cause.
All right, so talk a little bit about, give us dates, times, places again.
Sure. November 10th. It's a Saturday, bright and early. It's going to be starting at 7:30. We'll have registration open probably about 6:15, 6:30. It's going to be our St. Lucie West campus. All the information you want, IRSCFoundation.org/5K.
Okay.
So make it super simple. It'll take you right there, give you more. And they can always reach out to me if they have more questions. I'm happy to answer them.
All right, great. Well, looking forward to the event. I'm afraid my running days may be over.
It's a run walk. I got you.
That's right.
You can walk.
I'm going to be a walker. Yeah. So my wife and I will be bringing up the rear for the 5K walk and run.
Actually, Carol and I should do that in preparation for the Sugar Plum, which is the 30th of November.
Right.
Yeah.
So looking forward to it, and you've done a great job putting it together, John. And I know that, hopefully, what does registration look like right now? You got a
right now we're low, under 100. So we're hoping to get above that. But it is our first year, and kind of talking to Mike, we're really trying to get our foot in the sand. We're the new guy in the playground.
That's right.
But we're hoping for the best.
Well, listen, great work. And how does someone, if they're an IRSC alumni, how do they get in? Is there someplace special they go on the website to kind of sign up and become an alumni, part of your alumni association?
Sure. If you go to IRSCFoundation.org, you'll see alumni right there. Click on it. Shoot me a note. Sign up for the Alumni Association. We'll connect, and we'll make some great things happen.
And I think there's some benefits to being an alumni in the association.
There are. We have some discounts around town that's always growing and kind of changing as we try to develop that. Also, there's some opportunities to get some continuing education through other programs we offer on the college. So it's ever growing, and hopefully it'll be even bigger and better, in the years to come.
Okay. Listen, John, here's what we're going to do with you. I know you guys have so much to talk about. We're going to bring you and some other folks from the foundation back in a couple weeks, and
I like it.
Spend a lot of time talking about the foundation, because you guys do have a lot going on, and you're a big important part of the community, the IRSC community. So
that's great. No, we love being it.
All right, we appreciate the work you do, John. Thank you for taking time out this evening and kind of updating us. So that is the inaugural Pioneer 5K walk and run. I will be walking.
I will be thinking about it in the parking lot, setting everything up.
All right, John, thank you, and keep up the good work at the foundation. With that, we're going to take just a quick break, so stay with us. We're going to be right back with Dr. James Sullivan of FAU's Harbor Branch. Stay tuned.
The Florida SBDC at Indian River State College is pleased to host the United States Postal Service at IRSC's Pruitt campus in beautiful St. Lucie West on October 10th at 10 a.m. The USPS will discuss the advantages of its Every Door direct mail program. Come learn about this affordable, targeted advertising technique that lets you map your marketing by zip code, age, median income, and household size. Don't miss this great seminar and learn how to effectively market to your customer. Join us on Wednesday, October 10th at 10 a.m. at IRSC's Pruitt campus in St. Lucie West. Visit www.irscbiz.com. That's IRSCBIZ.com, or call 772-336-6285. That's 336-6285 for more information. Register today for the annual Women and Minorities in Business Summit hosted by the Florida SBDC at Indian River State College. This year's event will be held on Thursday, October 18th at IRSC's Pruitt campus in St. Lucie West. The theme of this year's event is Capitalizing on a Season of Growth. Come learn more about the importance of access to capital, understanding profit and loss, the ins and outs of SEO and digital marketing, and cybersecurity, myths, tips, and cyber insurance. Cost for the half-day event is $25 and includes breakfast and lunch. Opportunities for vendor tables are available at the low cost of $50. Visit irscbiz.com or call 772-336-6285 for more information. Register today for the annual Women and Minorities in Business Summit, Thursday, October 18th. Doors open at 7:30 a.m.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
And we are back. This is Startup Talk from the Dan K. Richardson Entrepreneurship Development Institute here at Indian River State College. I am Tom Kindred. I am the Regional Director for the Florida Small Business Development Center here at Indian River State College. And just very excited to talk to our next guest, Dr. James Sullivan, who is with Florida Atlantic University's Harbor Branch Oceanographic Institute. Welcome again to the show, Dr. Sullivan. Just a little bit about Dr. Sullivan. Before becoming executive director at FAU's Harbor Branch, he held senior positions in both academia and industry at the University of Rhode Island, as a research faculty at its Graduate School of Oceanography, and as a senior oceanographer for the private company Seabird Scientific, which manufactures instruments for measuring and monitoring ocean activity. During his career, Dr. Sullivan received funding through all of the major federal science agencies, including the National Science Foundation, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Close.
Yeah, close. National Oceanographic Partnership Program, Office of Naval Research, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and the National Institutes of Health. He has received more than $11 million in grant funding from these agencies. Again, thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us here on Startup Talk for really what is a very serious discussion on an important topic for our region, the blue-green algae bloom issue in our lagoon. So again, thank you, sir. Now, I kind of gave a little bit of your background, kind of fill in the gaps, your pathway here to FAU and Harbor Branch.
So, as you said, I'm originally a lifelong New Englander. I was born and raised in Rhode Island, moved around New England quite a bit. Ended up going to school up there and got my PhD at the University of Rhode Island. And my PhD involves studying phytoplankton and specifically harmful algae. So that's why I know quite a bit about this. As time went on, I worked in industry for a while, and then my family decided we wanted to get out of the somewhat cold Northeast and move a little bit south.
Why would you want to do that?
So we had a few opportunities for jobs in different areas of the country, and my family chose Florida. So I came to FAU as a research professor approximately 3 years ago, and specifically for to fill out their research portfolio for someone who could study phytoplankton and harmful algae.
Nice. Well, we're glad you're here. Start us off with a little update. If those of us who are locals and been around a while, gosh, Harbor Branch has meant so much to the community, and gosh, so many. I've been to the place a gazillion times over my career and my lifetime here, but it's always been an important institute here along the Treasure Coast. But kind of give us an update. What's been going on? What's going on currently at Harbor Branch?
So we're in a really, really exciting time. Harbor Branch has always been, a standalone institute. It eventually, in 2007, I believe, or 2008, it merged with FAU and became one of the campus sites of FAU. But we were also named as one of the 4 research pillars of the FAU system, which means Harbor Branch is taking a critical leadership role in trying to take all the marine science, oceanography, environmental work that's done across the FAU system, which is quite extensive with multiple campuses, and to provide the leadership to expand that kind of science in the research enterprise of the university. So Harbor Branch is the leader for that now.
Right. Talk a little bit about facilities at Harbor Branch. I mean, incredible high-tech facilities.
Yeah, a lot of people who haven't been there don't realize the breadth of research that we do. We do biomedical research. We're trying to develop therapeutic drugs for difficult cancers to cure, like pancreatic cancer. We're working on new antibiotics, so that's our biomedical research center. We have a whole bunch of different scientists who work on coral reef ecology. Corals are endangered across the world. It's a big area of study. We have Harbor Branch was founded on ocean engineering. We developed one of the first deep diving submarines in the world, the Johnson Sea Link, and our engineering program is pretty extensive and also growing. There's people like me that do phytoplankton type work. We have people that are doing fisheries work and trying to understand marine mammal health in the lagoon and offshore here. Suffice it to say, we have a broad array of expertise, and we're in the process, because of this pillar that we're doing, this research pillar we're doing with FAU, we've begun hiring new faculty, and we've already hired 5 new faculty in the past 2 years, and we'll be hiring 3 more in the next year.
Yeah, and I was quite surprised when I kind of looked into Harbor Branch and what was going on, and kind of anticipation of having you on the show tonight. I mean, 200 folks, kind of associated with Harbor Branch. I mean, that's a lot of activity going on up there.
Yeah, roughly our staff, it hovers somewhere around 200 staff, and of that, approximately almost 30 now are research faculty. And some are tenure-track professors, some are straight research faculty, and the rest are both students, postdocs, and support staff.
Wow.
Do you still have those research ships?
So that we do not have. So that having oceanographic vessels is very expensive.
Okay, there you go.
Very expensive.
Yeah.
So we more, and it's kind of that's been a trend across the United States at other research institutes. There's only now just several that have an actual active fleet of boats.
Okay.
We have what's called the UNOL system, the university-wide research ship system. So we go out on them. We don't have to have our own.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense. Makes more sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, you've also, with all the research that's going on, you also actually offer, there's degree offerings at Harbor Branch, are there not? You're teaching classes at Harbor Branch?
We are. So that just started last year. We now have a Master's of Science degree in Marine Science and Oceanography.
Wow.
We've always had graduate students there who are trying to get PhDs or masters in other programs offered by FAU, but this is a program specific to Harbor Branch.
Okay. And still in the aquaculture business, I guess. That's still all happening up there.
Yep. Aquaculture is going strong. As a matter of fact, as a university, we're allowed to try to get appropriations through the Congress. And this year, Harbor Branch has actually potentially got 2 appropriations coming through the federal government. One of them is a $1 million reoccurring appropriation for Harbor Branch to increase the aquaculture facilities we do.
Okay. Well, incredible report about what's going on at Harbor Branch. I think, it's kind of been part of our fabric in the community for so long. I think people kind of sometimes forget it's up there. But all of that going on right here in St. Lucie County.
Yeah, and it's my job as executive director to get out and do shows like this. Talk to the community to try to spread the word of what Harbor Branch is doing.
You've never done a show like this.
That's right. And this will be your last stop. Everyone will know what you're doing after tonight. So anyway, well, let's I had the opportunity to hear you speak the other day at the St. Lucie County EDC regular lunch. And, you really gave an incredible presentation and detailing this whole blue-green algae issue. And, as a person who grew up in Fort Pierce and St. Lucie County, I spent every summer day on that river. I tell folks all the time, my father would drop me off in the morning. He'd launch my boat in the morning on his way to work, and I was on that boat until he came and picked me up in the afternoon. So, I have a very, very close relationship now with a dermatologist because of all that all the hours that I spent on that river. But, things have really changed and not changed for the better with our lagoon. So kind of, start us with an overview of this algae problem that's occurring in our lagoon right now.
So I would back up just a little bit and say that the problem of harmful algal blooms, or these harmful algae blooms, however you want to say it, is not just restricted to Florida. This is becoming a worldwide problem, and we're seeing increases in the severity, the geographical extent, the timing of them across the world. However, and I've said this publicly, and I said it at the talk that you saw me speak, Florida is probably the most impacted state right now in the United States as far as a problem with harmful algae. And it's not just the blue-green algae bloom. At any one time, there are several different blooms going on from different organisms, different types of algae that create different problems in the lagoon and other waters. If we look at just what everyone's seeing in the news right now, on the West Coast, there's what's called the Florida red tide, which is an organism called Karenia brevis, which produces a toxin called brevetoxin. On this coast, we have, or in Lake Okeechobee, in both coasts actually, we have blue-green algae, which is a cyanobacteria, an organism called Microcystis organosa. It produces a really dangerous hepatotoxin, which is a liver toxin called microcystin. That's in the St. Lucie estuary. It also gets out through the Caloosahatchee into the Fort Myers area. In addition, up in the northern Indian River Lagoon, we have had an ongoing, since about 2012, brown tide. This is an organism called Oreoumbra. It is not toxic, but there's so much of it in the water, it strips the oxygen out of the water, and it creates very large fish kills. One of the largest fish kills the Indian River Lagoon ever had was in 2016, not that long ago, and it was due to this brown tide, which is still going on right now. Also, a little bit further south in the Banana River, there is an organism, another dinoflagellate organism like the Karenia on the west coast, called Pyrodinium, which has been blooming pretty much every summer since 1997. So this has been going on for quite a while. It produces yet another toxin called saxitoxin, which is a particularly dangerous neurotoxin.
Yeah. I want you to know L.A. smog is looking pretty good right
now. And I hate to, my wife has a name for me. She calls me Dr. Doom of the algae bloom.
Dr. Doom of the algae bloom. Okay, I like it. Well, you touched on it again. You touched on one of my questions was that, how long has this really been going on? You said part of it dates back to 1997. I mean,
the issue is harmful algae or algae that produce toxins and can create these issues that we have are naturally occurring organisms. These aren't new. They've been around longer than us. They've been around for literally millions upon billions of years. They evolved in the ocean, and that's where they are. So they're always around. It's just we're starting to see more and more and bigger blooms that last longer and longer. Right. So they've always been there. There are recorded records back as early as scientists were actually looking in the lagoon, finding blooms of harmful algae. They weren't as extensive and long-lasting as they are now. So that's the problem, is we're just seeing these intense events happen that are not like it used to be.
Yeah, and what I really appreciated early on in your presentation, kind of one of the first or second slides that you touched on was you talked about business, and it was interesting to have a scientist like yourself kind of be able to make that transition into business. I mean, you pointed out that this is beyond science. This is a real business problem for the area, economic problem that needs to be addressed. Kind of talk about your feelings with that whole part of this problem.
Yeah, I mean, it hits several things. It's obviously a human health crisis or potentially a human health problem, but the economics are, can be devastating to an area. You're not going to want a tourist come and swim in water that is, looks green or is just not nice to look at, and they have to put up warning signs saying it's toxic. Right. You're going to have that problem. Any kind of business that makes their money doing recreation on the water, boating, renting kayaks, renting boats, no one's going to want to do that either. So it's going to hurt rental agencies. People that have hotel rooms that are down on the water in nice areas, it's going to impact them. People that are trying to sell their real estate that abuts the water, you're going to potentially see a drop in real estate values. Economically, it can be devastating. And, one of the important, and I think I probably mentioned this, people don't realize the economic value of the Indian River Lagoon ecosystem that we all love. It's a recurring $8 billion a year. That's extensive. It's a lot of money. And, these blooms, if they keep on happening, I don't know what it's going to do to the economics.
Right. Now, you also mentioned in your presentation, you used the term that we were kind of ground zero. You said the Treasure Coast was kind of ground zero for this problem. Kind of explain ground zero to us.
Well, it's the complexity of the lagoon itself. I mean, the Indian River Lagoon spans, I believe, it's about 160 miles. It's 40% of Florida's east coast. And the lagoon itself actually goes through two different climatic zones. So that diversity in the environment also leads to a diversity in the kind of harmful algae that can actually occur in the lagoon. At any one time, there can actually be 3 to 4 different harmful algal blooms going on, each which creates its own problem, and it has potentially its own toxin that we have to worry about getting into wildlife or potentially into our human population. Because we have that in our backyard, it pretty much is ground zero. If there's a problem in the state of Florida, we're probably having it in the Indian River Lagoon.
Wow. Okay. And you did talk about duration of these problems. And before the show we were kind of talking about boating and when you could get back out and boat, and you talked about waiting for the winter, but as the winters kind of are shortened the last couple of years, does that really extend the period of the blue-green algae problem?
It absolutely does. So this particular organism, Microcystis, this blue-green algae that grows in Lake Okeechobee and can grow in any freshwater body, it particularly likes really warm temperatures. So anything above about 25 degrees Celsius, which is approximately 75 degrees Fahrenheit, it will grow really well. If it starts to get below that, it'll stop growing well, and essentially it'll start to dissipate. So our longer, hotter summers are only going to enhance the growth of this. And the longer our summers persist into the fall and we keep well up into the high 80s, well, guess what? The algae is going to continue growing.
Right. Pray for snow.
Don't laugh.
Yeah. You mentioned Lake Okeechobee. You during your presentation, you showed a photograph, an aerial shot of Lake Okeechobee, and I mean, quite dramatic. That aerial shot, what was the percentage of that lake covered in green? I mean, it was really kind of shocking.
So when we've been having these blooms occurring in the lake, and they seem to be coming almost every other year now, it's getting, it used to be every 10 years, and now it seems like every other year. But we have been seeing anywhere from 75 to 85% of the surface of the lake covered in the algae bloom. Because it floats to the surface, it's really easy to detect from space. I mean, we can actually see it from satellites. That's how big it is.
Right. And
is that from the I-4 corridor development?
What, the issues with Lake Okeechobee?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got to look at any nutrient inputs into the lake, so that's pretty varied. It could come from agriculture, it can come from runoff from residential property, it could come from biosolids, it could come from septic tanks that aren't controlled. I mean, the sources are numerous, but the biggest input probably into the lake for nutrients comes from the Kissimmee River Basin. I mean, that it's north of the lake, the water flows from the north to the south. That's where the nutrients are coming in. The state is trying through the Kissimmee River Restoration Project to deal with this and, make more of that water that would naturally come down into Lake Okeechobee stay up in that ecosystem in the north and get used up by the natural plants and, things up there that will suck the nutrients out of the water so they don't go straight into the lake.
One of the things I think, of course, it's always natural. You got the question that day that you gave the presentation, what do we do to fix it? And I think, again, as you just kind of answered to Greg's question, I mean, if you knew the cause, you could fix the problem. But there's just, within the scientific community, what are some of the more, suspected causes? And you just rattled off some of them, but have you honed in on any of those? And is it the nutrients? Is it or we just don't know? There's just too many choices.
We know it's fingerprinting exactly what's driving it. The simplest way to put this for people that aren't algal biologists is these are simple plants. Just think of them like plants. They only need 3 things, just like a common house plant or the grass on your lawn. They need light, they need warm temperatures because they grow better in warmth, and they need nutrients. That's all they need. So if we're not going to cut off the light, it's the sunshine state. And I
Right.
don't think we want the sun to go away.
Right.
But warmer temperatures are an issue, as we see these warmer and warmer temperatures, and we're not going to be able to fix that anytime soon either. The one thing that humans can control that drives the growth that we see are the nutrients. We're essentially fertilizing our waterways. So the more nutrients we dump into our waterways, the more we're going to sustain these. Just like if you fertilize your lawn, guess what? It's going to grow. Well, if you fertilize the lake or the oceans, plants are going to grow, and some of them aren't good.
Right. What our SBDC center here is very engaged in this issue because we have an emergency bridge loan program that gets deployed during disasters and events, and of course they've actually deployed the emergency bridge loan program now because of the blue algae bloom, because as you mentioned, businesses are affected by this. And of course the other side of the state, there's an SBDC at Florida Gulf Coast University, and they are in the same situation we're in. They deployed the emergency bridge loan for the red tide issue. So I'm constantly seeing blue-green and red tide. What is the difference in the two? And how does that occur?
Well, there's two main differences. Number one, they are different organisms. So it's like looking at the difference between a cow and a dog. I mean, they're fundamentally different organisms. One, the Florida red tide, is actually an organism that grows in salt water. So it's a saltwater algae. The blue-green algae is actually a freshwater algae. So that's why basically all the blooms originate in Lake Okeechobee. It only grows well in fresh water. It can tolerate some salt water, so when it mixes into the estuaries in the ocean, anything of about 15 parts per thousand, it will die. In a typical ocean, for people that aren't oceanographers, the salinity of the ocean is somewhere between 30 and 35 parts per thousand. So once that algae gets discharged from the lake and goes to the oceans, it will die. It cannot persist. The Florida red tide will do quite well in the ocean. That's where it grows. But it can't grow in the lake. It's different.
Yeah.
But they're different organisms, and they produce different toxins. They have totally different effects on people. Brevetoxin is an irritant to our lungs. It will make people's eyes red. It'll make you cough. But I don't know of any instances where someone has died from brevetoxin exposure. It's very harmful to sea life. It's a neurotoxin. Fish and other organisms that are in it, they will die if they're exposed to a high enough of it. However, generally it's not a fatal problem for humans. That is not true of blue-green algae toxin, the microcystin. This can literally cause liver failure in humans if you get exposed to it.
Wow.
And there are reports of humans being killed by it.
So you see it when we've been out at the lake. You can see it sitting on top.
Mm-hmm.
Does any of that sink down to the bottom of the lake?
So there's a couple things. You're only going to see it form those mats that float on the surface, and that's part of its ecology. That's how it lives. It outcompetes everything else. When it rises to the surface, any of the phytoplankton that live below it or seagrass, they don't get any light. It shades them out. So its competitors for the nutrients, it basically gets rid of them. So that's part of its ecology, that it floats. But if it's windy at all, it tends to mix up in the water, so you're not going to see it even though it's there. But as soon as it gets calm, it's immediately going to float. It's got gas bubbles inside of it, inside its cells, so it can float to the surface. So sometimes it's mixed up and you don't see it, but it'll come right back. When the conditions get poor, like when winter comes and it gets below 25 degrees Celsius, it does tend to sink out of the water column and just go sit on the bottom of the lake or whatever pond it's on until conditions get better, and then it comes back up.
Right.
That sounds like a horror movie.
Yeah, I think it is.
Ooh.
You talked about the salinity. It doesn't do well in the salt water. Do we get a natural maybe flushing motion with our inlets? Does that help us in St. Lucie County a little bit? Does it get flushed out and then fade in the salt water? Is that what happens to it?
That is exactly what generally happens. It'll eventually work its way out through the inlets to the Atlantic beaches. There were cases, though, I know in Martin County, especially during 2016, when it goes out into the Atlantic, and it gets flushed out, it dies because the salinity is too high. But unfortunately, when it dies, it releases all its toxin at once. The cells basically break apart, and all the toxin comes out. So if you're down on the beach in that couple days when it's flushing out, the toxin values in the water can be extremely high. they had to close, I remember, I think it was Bathtub Beach and a few other areas, just before a couple days until it would naturally wash away. But there is that problem. When it dies, it tends to release all its toxin right away.
And I just heard on the news the other day, kind of paying attention to it, but there was some talk about, red tide's always been on the West Coast, but there was some talk about that occurring now on the East Coast. Did I hear that correctly?
You did hear that right. So essentially starting on this weekend, they had to close down, I believe, beaches near Jupiter Inlet and maybe a little bit north of there. And in fact, we went down at Harbor Branch, my lab in particular studies harmful algae. So we went down there and sampled the water and confirmed that, yes, Karenia brevis, the red tide organism from the West Coast, was now on the East Coast.
Wow.
There's still a lot of debate on how exactly it got there. There's some people that say it started on the West Coast in the Gulf of Mexico. We have what's called the loop current, which goes from the Gulf of Mexico below the southern part of Florida and then basically comes into the Gulf Stream, which runs up the east coast of the United States. Well, it could be that big bloom that's been going on all summer got entrained into that current and just got transported over here. So it didn't really grow here. It came over. Right. And then when we have the onshore winds, like we've actually had the past week, it blows it from offshore inshore. So it was more offshore and it came in. That's one theory. The other theory is, that organism does occur on this coast. It just doesn't normally bloom. It's like I told you, there's a lot of these algae out there naturally. If the conditions are right, it'll bloom. It's possible it is a local growth of it, but I would suspect it's probably a transported population. Good news is, if that's true, I would think that this will be gone when the weather changes and the wind changes and the currents, meander as they do. This might be gone by next week, and it won't be a sustained issue.
Okay, and again, you talked about the Jupiter Inlet now. So how far north and south does this issue in? You said the lagoon really covers 45% of the east coast of Florida.
It's about 40% of the east coast of Florida.
So of that 40%, how far is this all extending north and south? Is it?
Well, this is the issue is there's different blooms in different parts of the lagoon already, so it extends over the entire lagoon, essentially. It just depends on which organism you're talking about. Right. So the blue-green algae, it's really a problem around the St. Lucie estuary and the inlets right there. It doesn't really get up to like Vero Beach or any further than that, and it generally doesn't get anywhere down near Jupiter. But it is a problem right in the St. Lucie estuary area. Wow. Once it hits the salt water, it's essentially going to die and be flushed out. But, if you go south down by Jupiter, now there's red tide apparently there. If we go up north, I already told you, there's a brown tide that's been going on since 2012, and we have that other pyridinium bloom. So it really just depends on where you are.
Right. Wow. And let's talk, because you really stressed this, and you just talked about it again. This really is harmful to humans, to people. So if you're out and you're in your boat and you decide to cool off and dive in and you're exposed to this, there was the story, and you mentioned it about I think there was a young man trying to kind of maybe run from law enforcement, and
yes.
he decided to jump into a canal, and I think he came back out and accepted his fate with the law enforcement because it was easier than the fate in the canal. So this is bad stuff if you come in contact with it.
It is, and the counties have usually been pretty good about putting up warning signs that, you should not recreate or touch the water. I know Martin County was pretty good about doing it. I believe St. Lucie has done the same thing, and I know they've put up signs now that the red tide is here, warning people that, there's enough of it out there that if, you should avoid this water. And that's the biggest part, is we have to inform the public when they can and when they can't recreate and be in the water, and what their safety level is.
There was a time when there were some monitors, and I think Harbor Branch even worked with a unique monitoring system. Is monitoring still going on in the Indian River Lagoon? Are you guys constantly checking the quality of the water?
So we do have a monitoring system. It still goes on to this day. It's called the Indian River Lagoon Observatory, and it's about 12 different sites all the way from throughout the St. Lucie estuary up to about the Sebastian Inlet area. And then the northern part of the lagoon is actually monitored by the St. John's Water Management District. They have similar devices. So we have a pretty good monitoring of the lagoon. The unfortunate thing is it does tell us about like the basic parameters of the lagoon water, like temperature, salinity, the amount of chlorophyll in the water. It doesn't tell us about the species of algae that are out there. So it doesn't tell us that algae, there's harmful algae out there. We are in the process as scientists trying to develop sensors that actually will do this for us. We'll actually monitor the water without having the expense of having a scientist go out and take a sample, bring it back to the lab, look at it, identify it. And there is technology out there to do that now. It's just a matter of getting the funding and the infrastructure in place that we can deploy that into the lagoon to help us.
I know at one time, I think I remember there was a request into the state legislature to kind of fund some of the monitoring devices. Are we still working with our legislative bodies to try to get some funding to enhance the technology? And
well, they've given us the funding to keep the basic monitoring going, but we do need. That's part of my job is to try to beat the bushes and find as much funding as I can to make our monitoring as state of the art and as good as it can be. So I am constantly trying to pester the state for more money to do this. But, I think there's enough political will right now to start doing this. Right. And the federal government just released a couple programs today for harmful algal bloom research that was somewhere around $8 million total, which Harbor Branch will be competing for. We will try to get that money.
Well, whatever we can do to help you. So along those same lines, I think one of the most exciting and interesting actions that you said that folks were taking was you're pursuing the development of what's called the Florida Coastal the Center for Coastal and Human Health. Talk about this center that you're trying to develop and launch.
So we officially did launch it August 1st, 2018. The Harbor Branch Foundation gave us an initial seed grant of $650,000, which was great and we're very appreciative for. And the purpose of this center is to not only conduct the basic research we need and do the monitoring and do the critical testing that we need to do when these blooms are going on, but to also get in community stakeholders. We work with county commissioners. We work with the people who are very interested in the results that we generate and to disperse this message out to the communities. This is what we're here to serve, human health needs. We want to make sure that people are adequately informed about the potential risks to their health. So getting people together under the umbrella of a center is my dream, is to make this happen. And I am working with a lot of our county commissioners, our health providers, to get memorandums of understanding together with them to be stakeholders in this center, and I'm having great success getting people in this.
I would hope so.
Yes.
Yeah, you talked about one of the things that you talked about was bringing in partners for this center. So are you looking for other scientific institutions? And then I'm assuming that the center would be an entity that could go after grant money like you're talking about. So is that kind of what you envision with the center?
Absolutely. So the original, getting $650,000, that sounds like a lot. It's actually not a lot. A center like this, needs millions of dollars to do an effective job. And we're going to get that, and we're going to we already kind of have a partner with the University of Florida. We're working with the National Estuary Program as well. They've provided some funding that's going to do work that will be under this center. So we are open to working with any entity, be it educational, community, whatever it takes, to get this research done. And of course, part of it is all the scientists that are part of this are going to be competing for money from the federal government, the state, and philanthropy. We're also, there are interested people that want to donate to fund the center and the research we can do.
What about the water districts, South Florida, and you mentioned St. John's? I'm assuming they're certainly interested and supportive of because, again, and of course the Florida Corps of Engineers take a little bit of a beating, when with the water releases. Yep. So, I mean, this has got to be tough on the water management districts.
Easy targets.
Right. So I'm assuming they're very supportive of you trying to figure out what's going on so that they don't constantly become kind of the lightning rod for this whole problem.
No, we don't. We shouldn't be blaming everyone. We all have to work together. That's the whole point of a center, is that we have to collaborate. There's a lot of people doing really good science and doing really good monitoring, good work, and we need to leverage that. We don't want to repeat work. We want to take our strengths and put them together. I want to work with the management districts, the Department of Environmental Protection, the Health Department, everybody. We need to work together to solve this problem.
Now, do the hospital companies help you out in any of this?
So we have actually been talking to Martin Health about also joining this center. It looks like there's
Soon
a good
to be
possibility
Cleveland.
yeah, Cleveland Clinic. It looks like that's likely going to happen as well. So yeah, we're literally talking to anyone who wants to be involved.
Yeah, because they're deeply affected because they would get the people.
They're serving the populations that are exposed to this.
Sure.
So it is an issue, you know, and so they want to know, if we just need to work together. We need to leverage our efforts. That's the only way we're going to get it done.
Okay. And then as we kind of come to a close here, talk again in general about the work at FAU, general information on the activities, and how does one find out more about what's going on at Harbor Branch? How could somebody get involved? And do you have volunteers with programs that you do? Kind of talk about that in general.
So Harbor Branch has a pretty good website, and we are actually going to be launching a center website very soon, which will have links to, information about harmful algal blooms, the kind of research we're doing, how people can get involved with citizen science or volunteering, or if they want to donate to the effort. So all that will be online. I hope to have that website actually up and running within like a week. Okay. We're trying to do that. And you can, of course, go just to the general Harbor Branch website to find more information about us and FAU as well.
Okay. Is Harbor Branch open to the public on a daily basis? Was there a lecture series? Do you have things of that nature where the public can come up and see the center and engage up there?
So we do have the Ocean Science Lecture Series that goes on generally in the springtime. It starts around January and goes till April. However, we're doing some special lectures. We've already had the Indian River Lagoon Health Report came out. We did a special lecture for that. Dwayne DeFries from the National Estuary Program is also giving a lecture next week. I think I'm giving a lecture in the next 2 weeks on the state and of harmful algal blooms in the Indian River Lagoon as a special lecture.
Wow.
So, yes, we do that. And we have a great visitor center. If you're interested to come into Harbor Branch, come to our visitor center. You can learn all about the research we're doing there.
Okay. Dr. Sullivan, incredible work. I don't even know how you had time to come up here and out tonight and talk to us, but you're doing incredible work. And listen, as a local who grew up on that river, I appreciate the work you're doing, and I know others do too. So keep up the good work. Stay in touch with us. Anything we can do to help spread the word about what you're doing, please let us know. And with that, we'll bring to close another segment of Startup Talk. I want to thank our guest tonight, John Crowe of IRSC's Foundation and Dr. James Sullivan with FAU and Harbor Branch, and remind everyone that all the business assistance programs and resources discussed on this segment are available through Indian River State College's Dan K. Richardson Entrepreneurship Development Institute, engaged at every stage of enterprise. For more information, you can always visit our irscbiz.com site. That's irscbiz.com. With that, I want to thank our partners here at WPSL, WSTU, WPSL TV. And with that, we will talk to you next Thursday on Startup Talk.
Startup Talk on WPSL, Port St. Lucie, WPSL worldwide on Alexa, Google Home, and Echo, and WSTU likewise on Alexa and Google Home. WSTU Studio.